How do I advocate for disability rights in the workplace? There's a couple of ways that I am doing this. First is through what's called an employee resources group. These are widely used in the business sector, in nonprofits, as well as academia. These are affinity groups. What these groups do is allow other people who have similar issues to actually get together and form a network, a support group. But they are also very important for allies and advocates. We need, in terms of supporting employees with disabilities in the workplace, allies and advocates to join us in this journey. The other way that I also advocate for workplace disability issues is through the faculty learning community. A faculty learning community is where faculty can get together to discuss how better to serve learners with disabilities. We share ideas, we look for best practices. So this is a second way. And finally, there is a recruitment effort where we actually go out and seek this growing community of learner for the university. It brings a great diversity into the university to have learners from this community. As you know, and national statistics show, this learner is growing in population and numbers in the United States. In fact, because of the American Disabilities Act of 1973, early education and secondary education institutions are doing a great job at preparing this learner to come in to a college and university setting. And so we are seeing a growth in numbers, and now we are trying to recruit those learners into our universities and colleges. You can also see this in the classroom. We are seeing more students needing certain accommodations and being part of this community. So it's an exciting time in the workplace, particularly in academic workplace. This community is diverse, which is very interesting. They have an intersectionality with gender, with people of color, with gender identity. They're not a monolithic group of people in this community. And so this community also has some really interesting areas that are unique to it. They have both hidden disabilities as well as visual disabilities. So you can see the disability and sometimes you have no idea. And so we have to be careful at the assumptions that are made towards people, because you really have no idea what the issues may be if you are talking with someone from the community. It makes important that we also don't require disclosure and that we give respect to people in this community, because of course that is a privacy issue and a medical issue that they do not have to necessarily disclose to continue working or to gain your respect. So we have to be fluid in our inclusion, I guess, is one of the points I want to make about the workplace. Build a network of community support with allies and other people like us. 1 in 5 people, statistics show, are going to have a disability that is life-challenging sometime in their lifespan. That's 20%. And I would venture to guess that most of us have had experience with family members or neighbors or colleagues in the workplace who have also had challenges with disabilities. Disability rights in the workplace is a really important function for employees to be aware of and to feel comfortable with. According to our national statistics, this learner is not only growing, but needing additional accommodations using technology and other innovative pedagogical approaches. The pandemic has taught us some things. It taught us how we can better communicate without a geospatial model. And so for some learners in this community and some employees in this community, we have actually found communication to be enhanced during the pandemic. In fact, I would say in most organizations, communication is taking place much more than when we were geospatially limited. You should ask people what type of accommodations or how can they be helped to contribute. In other words, don't tell the person how they can contribute, but ask what they need to be a contributor. So you ask questions, for instance, like, How can I best support your learning or completion of an assignment to both a learner and an employee? Building allies is critical, and at the same time, we must understand and hear the voices of this community. Nothing about us without us is one of the mottos that they use, and I think that's very powerful. This helps us avoid tokenism, issues of charity, and the placement of implicit bias on people. So how can we be more aware as a community and check our potential implicit bias that is taking place? One of the first ways that we can actually think about is our assumption of ableism. Ableism is the default philosophy that we tend to go to. And so we have to think about our language, our approaches to teaching and learning in academic institutions, in how we work with staff and students and faculty is very important. And the assumptions of ableism should really be carefully questioned and some critical analysis done on the approach. The assumptions about, for instance, teaching assignments or faculty assignments for teaching, all are very important for the learner, the employee, and the faculty member. Too many times I hear about employees where supervisors have approached them, asking them to do something that is required an ableism. And instead of the benefit of the doubt going to the employee now has to disclose themselves. That is through verification processes, filling out forms, and their colleagues around them oftentimes do not understand what is taking place and often can misjudge the situation, not knowingly. I would propose the following. We give each other the benefit of the doubt to both the employee and the learner in an academic institution. When the instructor, for instance, says, I would rather teach online this term, or can I offer an alternative to my participation geospatially by using Zoom or other technology for a conference call? Or if the learner needs more time on an assignment or needs an alternative assignment, that we not require verification and registration, but instead say, yes, of course, because it's really the learning outcomes that are what we are seeking in our courses. I think the ABLE community has seen the importance of alternatives for communication. In fact, I would pretend that we would actually communicate more during this pandemic. The workplace has reported tremendous productivity with employees during the pandemic, and we have not been there geospatially. Our goal, hopefully, is to focus on personalism and diversity and not make assumptions about what you see, but rather extend a support to each other, because what you see may be very deceptive and not really a way to make an accurate decision. The pandemic has really provided options for us to move outside of our teaching globally. It has allowed students and different types of learners from this community to actually engage more with non-geospatial approaches to teaching. For example, we bring global experiences now to all students in different courses, and it is not required a geospatial model. I hope post-pandemic we remain nimble in our modalities and how we interact in the workplace. I hear statements that learning can only take place and is superior when we are in the same geospatial dimension. I think the pandemic has shown that that is not necessarily the case. And I think this notion of having learning be only located where both the learner and the instructor are in the same space has been challenged during the pandemic. Same thing for employees. Productivity has enhanced during the pandemic with the increased use of technology. I see more communications and meetings taking place post-pandemic. I see a wide, and I hope for a wide modality in how we interact so that we gain more participation that has accessibility and availability for all of our community members. Many students share with me their views about the pandemic and how important it has been for them to continue to communicate without a geospatial barrier. And this isn't just for the learner with disabilities. Our learners come with all sorts of challenges: work, family, mobility, and other variations on barriers to accessibility. Also, I'm an environmental professor, our global carbon footprint has decreased during this time. And the time for commuting and the risks of transit, both public and private, that take place through accidents have also decreased. So it's really important that we think carefully of the lessons learned during the pandemic and the accessibility that was provided to all of the people in our community. As we move past the pandemic as an educational institution, I hope that we can embrace the changes for access and universal design in teaching. I hope that we understand the contributions that can be made when we open our minds to spatial and not make it a limitation. The virtual space has been a great enhancement for our learners with disabilities, as well as our faculty and our employees. As instructors begin their journey of universal access in teaching by focusing on achieving learning outcomes rather than forcing geospatial requirements, we can see how much our learner will benefit and how diversity of our learner will continue in the academic environment.